All right, everyone. Yesterday, the Boston Globe-led coalition, they were literally organizing and colluding together to do this, which is hilarious given the circumstances. Over 300 newspapers released editorials about how evil Trump was and his attacks on the press and how being criticized is like Nazi book banning and stuff like that. Now, this is bullshit. These people don't really care about free press. They care about their profit margins, which are steadily decreasing. Look, if you care about free press, at this point, the press is primarily online. If you're going to have a free press, you're going to have to prevent censorship. It's as plain as that. Both for, by the way, lamestream like corporate sites and for the alt media, like somebody like myself or a Lauren Southern or a Mal New. We're part of a group of people who do variously journalism, analysis, predictions, and polling and things like that, to have our fingers on the pulse of society and report on it accordingly. Now, of course, there's bias. Of course, there are people, virtually anyone who's in part of that has a political opinion of one sort or another. I'd say it leans heavily towards libertarianism, at least in the ideological sense, considering we're constantly faced by government censorship in various countries. But if you're going to have a free press, it doesn't begin and end at the newsprint offices. It doesn't begin and end at cable news. Those are simply older mediums. People need to start thinking about this in the proper non-newspeak, unskewed way. These are simply business firms that release information. They happen to be using older mediums of technology. Television is dying. Newsprint is basically vestigial at this point. The fact that they happen to use those older mediums preferentially does not mean that they are more important. It doesn't mean that they're more honest. In fact, usually, because their overhead is higher and the paychecks larger for their pundits, they are more corrupt. Money corrupts things. It's a fairly common tendency. That's why you need to have certain strictures in place to prevent abuse, which is something that we haven't so far, unfortunately, applied to big tech firms. Because these big tech firms get big money from these groups and streaming their services and partnering with them and doing like the debates on YouTube and stuff like that. And they have their Facebook pages and stuff. They get a lot of money from it. Naturally, they're going to favor them. Unfortunately, that means at this point it is necessary for us to eventually adopt an Internet Bill of Rights or public utility status for these companies. I think they shouldn't be considered public utilities. That's what I said before, but then it's like, why not just say that they are the new public square? It is true. That is where human communication and debate takes place. If you don't like what someone's saying, you have the option of walking away from it, literally. You can block them, you can ignore them, you can debate them on the topic. Everyone's equal. It's wonderful. It's equality. It's perfectly, not only is it perfectly fine, it's almost like the internet has become, to that extent, exactly what the founders would have wanted eventually to happen with the concept of free speech. Oh, wow, now everybody can weigh in, including the town lunatic. It's funny. The town drunk can weigh in on the aliens he saw last night. I think they would have loved it. I think that the founding fathers, by and large, would have thought that it was a good idea, and I think that they would be deeply concerned with the concept that there are large numbers of people, probably not a majority at this point, but a large number of people who don't mind if that speech is muzzled by groups that partner with the U.S. government anyway, as well as governments in other countries. That's even worse. May not violate the Constitution in the most direct sense, but it's far more dystopian. Oh yeah, Turkish government tells you you can't have this video up or this picture on Twitter that mocks some judge over in Turkey. Or yeah, Russia says no more Putin memes, so YouTube cracks down on Russia videos or something. Wouldn't that be considered a problem? Well, they're private companies, so they're allowed to do that, right? No, they're being coerced by a government. It's a different story. They're not private companies. You realize how many subsidies Silicon Valley gets just from California alone? You realize how much free taxpayer money gets thrown at them? They're government entities. They're almost co-owned at this point by the U.S. and Californian governments. Don't give me this private market bullshit. They're monopolies that are propped up by government interventionism. It's the only way that they can continue to function. Now, I don't care if they get subsidized. I honestly don't give a fuck. But if they're going to take any taxpayer money, then they should have a 100% open and fair, equal platform for everybody. Yeah, but 300 newspapers attacked Trump. That's a normal day. That happens every fucking day. That's the whole point. The whole point is that people who don't think Trump is the Antichrist have said he's getting hammered by lopsided reporting, and when he comes out and criticizes that because he's not the one that started the whole mess, people were acting like he was a pariah before he said anything bad so-called about the so-called press, aka corporate for-profit cable and newsprint outlets. They come out and they ream him, often on pardon the pun, trumped up charges of, well, he's a bigot. Oh, he'll collapse the economy. He's a bad person. He's did things with his daughter or something. They make up all this weird shit, and then they like entertain weirdos like Omarosa or Tom Arnold. And then he comes out and says, well, you're fake news, because it's literally fake. Oh my God, he's attacking the First Amendment. The President of the United States is basically being like Stalin and trying to erase the press. Criticism is not the same thing. It is far closer to Stalinism what's being done to the alt media by big tech firms in partnership with the corporate media and with certain people in government. The Democratic Party, right before the recent deplatforming, had a memo that got leaked a couple of weeks beforehand that basically spelled out kind of what big tech is doing now. Do you think that that leak may have affected their behavior a little bit? I think big tech is worried the Democrats retake the House and try to impose it on them. Instead of having public square or public utility or an internet bill of rights, it'd just be heavy-handed government regulation, terrestrial radio style. So, it would be bye-bye to independent commentary on all of the big tech sites if something like that were imposed. It would become burdensome in the expense department. We wouldn't be able to function. By the way, some of the missing link media tech smaller sites, they would go under too. You think Salon, that has trouble even paying for its fucking rent, would be able to survive in such a situation? No, they'd have to use alt tech, ironically. Yeah, soon Salon would have a major page on gab.ai. It'd be hilarious. By the way, you're welcome on all these platforms. Like when you talk about them being an echo chamber, like when Silverman there says, well, Gab is the alt-right Twitter. Well, then, fucking do more on Gab. Even the playing field. Get a bunch of liberals to come in. Wouldn't that be funny? You can have it out and have a debate. Debating, that fun thing to do that people used to do before they just tried to deplatform one another for shitty reasons. No, newspapers attacking Trump. Oh my God. These 300 editorials that in total will play up to a few million people who haven't already abandoned newsprint and thus are probably older and more conservative anyway. I'm sure that this will change the trajectory of our political history. Drumpf is finished this time. He's had his final scoop of ice cream. Impeachment when? Look, the Paul Manafort verdict is probably going to come in at some point today, and he's probably going to get found not guilty on most of the charges. If he gets the book thrown at him, I'll laugh uproariously. I'll rue his loss because, he'll be in jail for the rest of his life, but it would be kind of funny. But, in all likelihood, the political landscape's changing. Cable and newsprint are simply shitty mediums. They don't make sense. It's a centralized version of communication. These groups are just sad that in the internet era, some regular average Joe who happens to be halfway well-spoken and not look like a tub of lard is capable of combating their propaganda within 10 minutes of them uploading it. In which some off-hook journalist who doesn't have a degree, doesn't have a bunch of debt or $1 million news van, is capable of doing what they do better than they do, more efficiently, and can scoop them by an hour. They're getting scooped on Twitter by Trump every day, and they hate that fact. They're getting scooped by the alt media. We are displacing them. They're under stress, so they're trying to generate a moral panic. This moral panic will inevitably destroy most of the corporate media, because they're making the same exact mistakes and the same exact level, basically, as any prior moral panic. It's going to be funny when some of these firms go under. Like, you could see a world without a CNN, which, by the way, is the best thing for us. The less corporate propaganda swill bullshit that we have infesting people's minds with filth and lies, the better. As for Trump, you don't have to be a Trump superfan. You don't have to even really like Trump as a person. You can say, yeah, he's a Manhattan socialite billionaire. He's probably stabbed people in the back. He's the sort of person who probably would chuckle warmly if he put some family out of his apartment on Christmas. Yeah, you can think that about him, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he's a one-dimensional villain. It doesn't mean that when 300 newspapers get together and say, we're going to stop Trump now, it doesn't mean that their reporting is accurate. Most of it's bullshit. Honestly, if you have a clear mind and you're not a partisan, you're going to see it almost the same way a Republican partisan who's a super fan of Trump sees it. Except probably they chalk it up to a deep state conspiracy. I just chalk it up to normal corruption and money. They want money and they're losing it. Oh my God, we got to attack the alt media. We got to clickbait after Trump. It's the only thing we can do anymore. That's the reason why they're failing. That's about all. Peace out.